Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Michael Gillenwater, Executive Director of the Greenhouse Gas Management Institute, and proudly an applicant for the EPGHG certification. I'm still have to take my exam, but working to that with my travel schedule. Yeah, just happy to be here. We're very proud to be at this point and in launching and starting this new global certification. I'll have more to talk about it later, but I'm happy to answer your questions and take this process forward to building a global community of professionals in this space.
Hi, everyone. My name is Colleen Mahoney. Oh, sorry about that. My name is Colleen Mahoney, and I'm the certification coordinator at Eco Canada. My main role is to help anyone who applies for one of our designations to move through the application process and become a certified member. For those of you who aren't familiar with Eco Canada, we consider ourselves to be the steward for Canada's environmental workforce, and we've been this for more than 30 years. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to championing the end-to-end career of environmental professionals. We work with industry, government, and academia, and everything we do is rooted in environmental best practices, so our members can build a career that makes a difference. We've been certifying members since 2001, and in that time, we've helped more than 6,000 applicants become members. Eco Canada is positioned to be a partner in offering the EPGHG designations because we bring decades of experience in the certification process, from building occupational standards that are based on expert guidance from industry leaders to building an application process that is rigorous and supports the high ethical standard environmental professionals need. We are so thrilled to be working with GHGMI to building these designations for GHG management professionals. There's such a high global demand for highly skilled and ethical practitioners in the GHG management field, and we have the EPGHG designation so it can highlight the expertise and knowledge of these professionals. Our application portal opened in March, and this month we welcomed 4 new EPT GHG members to our roster. Today, I'm here to answer any questions you may have about eligibility, and also if you have any questions about the application process. I'd now like to turn it over to Isuri, our newly certified EPT GHG.
Thank you, Colleen. So first of all, thank you, Eco Canada and GHGMI for making me a part of this event. So if I briefly explain about myself, my name is Isuri Gamage and I'm here based in Hamilton, Ontario. So in terms of my education, I hold a bachelor's degree from Environmental Management and Forestry from Sri Lanka and a master's in Environmental Engineering from Canada. So what motivated me to study about environmental science mostly is because I'm very much interested in learning how human activities influence these natural ecosystems and how we can mitigate those impacts and manage those impacts. So this made me choose my first career as an environmental chemist, where I was testing samples and do the compliance reporting. Then after some time, I started my master's in Canada, and then I realized, okay, there are so many more disciplines in this environment sector. And in Canada, sustainability, climate change, the carbon reporting, these kind of topics are like very popular because Canada has already put some commitments towards becoming net zero country, electrification of the transport system and everything. So then I started I started researching about the career opportunities I have here in Canada. So then I realized, okay, this is a very good field, but still I need some kind of certification and some proof to showcase that I have the potential. That's why I applied for the GHG certification from Eco Canada. So actually, I was waiting until Eco Canada launched this certification. So maybe that's why I became one of the very first few recipients. So as far as I remember, the application was open on March 2nd, and I applied on the very same day because I was like really waiting for them to launch the certification. So now I'm and GHGMI also, like I went through the website and found they have very good courses, so I can improve my knowledge on basically GHG quantifications, accounting, making the inventories. So that's what motivated me towards the application, and that's why I applied. So that's about myself.
Great. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. And now we're just going to ask our Isuri a few questions just to get a deeper understanding of what the applicant experience was like. And so Michael and Colleen have a few questions to ask of you, Isuri. And I just wanted to remind everyone, please go ahead and type your questions in the chat. Even at this point is fine. And so we can, when we're ready for the Q&A, we can go ahead and jump in. Thank you.
So, Isuri, what was the application process like for you?
Application process was very clear because the application was itself, it was not that lengthy with so many pages to fill. It's like very clear and transparent, like whatever the details that Eco Canada needs, it was explained in the application. And on the other thing is like, thank you, Colleen, for keeping me updated all throughout the certification process, because then I was aware of where my certification is at. Like when the background investigation started, I was informed, okay, we are sending the request to education qualification reviews. And then the application process was very smooth, and you answered all my questions because of the points that I wanted to be clarified. So I emailed EcoCanada and they promptly responded me. So it was very good experience. It was faster than I expected, and the process was also clear and simple.
Thanks. I'll follow up with another question, Isri. Yeah, you kind of answered this a little bit in your opening, but maybe say a little bit more about your motivations for specifically gaining a professional certification in greenhouse gas management issues versus your past experience, was more environmental chemistry focused.
Okay, so I was in environmental chemistry, so now I want to switch towards greenhouse gases, sustainability, carbon accounting. So that's my interest at the moment. During my academics, I learned most of these things as courses, but my degree itself says environmental management and forestry, so it doesn't highlight my skills or my interest. So I wanted a certification so that it specifically describes my interest and my capability as well. So that's why I was looking for the potential certifications I can go for. And then I found I was basically focused on getting something related to GHG, which states it. So then I found GHG certification from Eco Canada, and then I found GHG Management Institute was also involved in this one. So I can get the knowledge from the GHGMI courses and my certification from Eco Canada. And the other thing is it gives me so many opportunities to network because there's a huge population in this community, the EP community. So it's a very good opportunity for the networking, and it improves my credibility as a professional as well. And it's good for my future, my promotions, my expertise. So that's why I wanted the certification.
Great,
Great.
thank you. And then you just answered my other question, which was like, what did you see as the benefits? So two birds in one stone.
Oh, so yeah, that's basically the networking, the recognition I get, um, all the competitive advantages. Yeah, and the
Great.
knowledge.
And what about a piece of advice? If you could let everybody on the call know one thing, what would be your piece of advice?
Oh, advice. Okay, so yeah, this is my opinion, my research, and what I think. So now, the sustainability is no more any option. It has become an obligation. So it's better to be prepared before it becomes very competitive in the market. So my advice is prepare yourself, get your certifications done, get your knowledge. So certification gives you the recognition and your credibility in the industry. So if we prepare ourselves in advance, so we will be very good assets when the opportunities, when the demands comes up in the market. So my advice will be get your certifications done, evaluate yourself, could be EP, could be EPT based on your qualifications. So it's better to be prepared at the beginning, and you will get a very good exposure to a huge network of EPs. At the moment, I believe it's not EP GHGs that many, but still, even EPs, when I was searching in the LinkedIn, I found so many EP people, like EP professionals, but still they have very good knowledge on GHG accounting. So we can get the help from them to improve ourselves in the industry and to get good job opportunities as well.
Great, thank you. So hopefully listening to Asuri has helped you gain a little bit more understanding of what the application experience has been like for someone, maybe answer some questions for you, or at least resolve some fears or nervousness as you get ready to apply yourself. And so thank you, Asuri, for your time and all your answers. We assume that some of the questions that come in, you might also be able to help answer them a little bit. So thank you again. So we're going to start off with just a couple questions that we've received prior to this open house Q&A that I believe will actually answer some questions that are coming in through the chat. So thank you. And the first one is, how long does it take to apply? Not just considering how long does it take to complete the application, but what is the timeline like between applying and becoming certified? So maybe Asuri, you could let us know first, how long did it take you to apply?
I filled the application on March 2nd. So if I go in terms of the dates itself, and then it didn't take that much time to complete filling because I was looking for the details. So I had everything in hand, all the education requirements, work requirements, training details. So I had everything. So once I did the payment, I was automatically guided for the next steps. I received an email saying these are the next steps that I had to follow. So I did it might took me around 15-30 minutes to fill the application. And then all the education background checks and everything worked on. After a couple of weeks, Colin updated me saying my certification request is already approved by the first place. And then I don't remember the person, but it was first approved by the I don't remember the person, but then it was approved by the committee on the second week of April. So within the second week of April, I received my EPT certification. So around 6 weeks maximum for myself.
And I'll just add some additional information there. Certainly, the EPT-GHG application will not take as long as someone who has to submit their work logs and also fill out the mapping competency spreadsheet. Applicants are also delayed if they are using training that isn't from one of our approved organizations. And those approved organizations are listed in both guides. If you have a training organization where you received your 24 hours of GHG training and it's not in the list, you have to fill out a form that then goes to one of our committees to get that training approved. So certainly on average, it probably takes an EPT applicant 4 to 6 weeks, depending on when in a month they apply. EP GHG applicants need more time. But Michael, maybe you could answer that question. How long did it take you to fill out your application?
Yeah, I mean, many of us are already obviously working professionals. That's, the certification, the EP, versus the EPT is for working professionals. So we're all busy, but yeah, it's sort of a function of how, let's just say, how organized you were coming into it. As Zuri said, she was well organized, in terms of, do you have existing descriptions of the projects you've worked on in the past, and have you like kept track of like when those projects have happened? And do you have records of, past trainings that you've either participated in, courses, or potentially deliver. In my case, most of my training requirements were fulfilled by delivering training, because I'm in a part of my career where I'm teaching courses rather than taking them more often than not. Not that I never take courses. And so, it might take you a little bit more time getting that information together if it's not already readily organized. And then I think I think I may have seen some questions. There is the process of the occupational standard has a rubric of structuring different competencies, so that you do need to map your work logs to like what actual competencies within your that you're applying to the, in terms of the occupational standard. So, was this project about inventories? What skills did you demonstrate through that project you worked on related to inventories, greenhouse gas inventories, or other issues? And that can take a little bit of time, but I think it's an important and valuable thing. One, obviously, it provides information for the certification committee to better evaluate your application, but it's also helps you understand where your strengths and weaknesses are in terms of the overall certification rubric. And will, I found it a useful exercise in sort of reflecting on my own experience, as well as setting you up to prepare for the exam, because then you'll better understand where are my strengths, where have I done a lot of work, and where might I have some gaps where I might need to do a little extra bit of studying going into the exam.
Great. Thank you so much for your answers. We also have a common question that has come in, and again, I'm seeing similar questions on the chat about what training is acceptable. And if the trainer that someone has used for their training is not on the list, how do they go about the process of getting that training approved?
I can answer that one. So we have a document that you need to fill out if you've received training from an organization not on the list. And there's two ways you can receive that document. One is you can reach out to me directly. My email address is cmahoney@eco.ca. You can ask me for the document that you need to fill out, and I will email it to you. Then you send it back to me, and I will make sure that our certification committee reviews that document. You can also start your application. I'll review it for eligibility. And if I see that your training is not from one of the approved organizations, I will send you the list, the document you need to fill out, and ask you to fill it out and as completely as you can and send it back to me. So then I can take it to the certification committee. So there's two ways to get a document. Email me directly or start your application, and then I'll email it to you.
And I'll just add, that list of recognized trainers, the intention is that list will be growing as applicants propose new training providers to be recognized. But there is kind of a formal part of doing due diligence and having the certification committee look at different kinds of trainers to make sure they meet kind of minimum expectations in terms of quality. Um, but yeah, so don't hesitate to propose additional trainers to be added to that list as you're going through, because we know there's a large diversity of training, let's just say, possibilities out there in this space, and it's constantly changing and whatnot. So.
Thank you so much for your answers. Another question that we get a lot is about the exam. So folks wonder, what is that exam like exactly? Is it technical? Is it practical? Is there anything that will help someone study for the exam? Perhaps you can shed some light on these common exam questions.
We do have some documents that we will send to you after you submit your application and have chosen your specialization. So we can send you documents that will help you prepare. There is a study guide as well as, I think it's called a rubric too. Anyways, it's information about the exam and how to prepare for it. It is a proctored exam, which means that you do need to have someone be in the room with you while you're writing the exam. But all of this information can be found in the exam guidelines that we will send to you after you've applied for your designation.
And again, I'll just add that the study guide will have some example questions to kind of give you a flavor for what an exam question will look like. And it is a technical exam, and it does map to, as Colleen said, to a rubric that's tailored to your specialization that you select. So the exams all essentially cover similar territory, but some focus more on certain areas than others. Obviously, if you're focused more on verification, you're going to get more questions focused on verification. If you're focused more on inventories, you're going to get more questions on inventories. If you're focused on, more policy topics, you're going to get more questions on policy topics. And the study guide, again, will map to where those concentrations fall, so what to expect in terms of, more questions here, less questions there, and more rigorous questions on this topic than on that topic. I don't know, Isri, do you want to comment a little bit on your experience with the exam?
I got the EPT, so I didn't have the exam, but in terms
Oh,
of
that's right.
training, I had it from Concordia, so it was accredited from Eco Canada.
Yeah. But I know it's easy. So, for some of us, it's been a while since we took an exam. So it's easy to get nervous about it. And I would just say, Colleen, maybe you can talk a little bit about the process if for some reason someone maybe gets caught off guard by the exam and needs to take it again, and what are the rules there. But I would say that we that study guide that you will get provides some guidance on how to study and some resources to go to look at that, look at different topics. And let's just say the exam isn't super easy, but anyone that's working in this space should be able to handle it. Just make sure you've kind of broadened maybe your exposure, maybe refresh yourself on some things. So doing a little bit of self study, and again, the study guide will help you do that kind of self study and refreshing.
And in regards to the exam, you are going to write it online, and you actually will launch the exam from your Eco Canada account, and you'll go into our learning management system, which is called Absorb. Then you'll go through the exam question by question and submit your answers. You will be able to go back and forth. If you rethink a question or you want to re-answer something, you'll have that opportunity. And then at the very end, you're going to click a submit button. Once you click the submit button, that's it. Your exam is completed. The passing grade is 75%. And if you don't pass, then you will have the opportunity to write a different version of the exam again. And we will allow you 2 attempts at no charge. But if it requires that you need to write it a 3rd time, that's okay. But you will have to pay an exam fee again for that one. And I believe it's $50. I can double check that, but I think it's $50. Also, only EP GHG applicants need to write the exam. So if you want to apply for EPT, you do not write the exam. Okay, so the exam is just for our EP applicants.
Thank you so much. And then the final common question that we've received is all about the benefits of earning this designation. So what are the benefits for those who earn the EP-GHG, but also for the EPT-GHG? And both from what Eco Canada will be able to provide and what GHGMI provides in terms of benefits, but also more of that overarching benefit for careers, for growth, for learning opportunities, things like that.
Well, probably the top benefit would be recognition of your knowledge and expertise in the greenhouse gas management space. So when you become a certified member, when the board has approved your application, you will receive a certificate from us. So it's like a diploma. And on that certificate, it will have your name, what you're specialized in, how long your certificate is good for. So the day that you received your certification, and then it's a 5-year term. The certificate will also have the Eco Canada logos and the Greenhouse Gas Management Institute logo. So you do get a or a certificate that you can download and hang on your wall or share with colleagues or potential employers. So you do get a record of that. For EPTs, you're going to have access to similar resources that our other EPTs get. So that's mentorship, discounts on training, career resources, and then, as Suri already mentioned, the opportunity to network. Once you become a certified member, you can attend any of our meetups, and these, of course, will be in Canada. So we haven't come up with a virtual ability yet, but we're working on it. But you can attend meetups in your area that we're hosting for free. There's also discounts on online training, as well as a number of webinars that you can access for free. And we are checking to see if some of our discounts that are applied to some of our retailers will also be applied to our EP-GHG members. So there's a number of benefits.
And I'll
Sorry,
just
go ahead,
add
Michael.
from the GHGMI side and the global community. GHGMI operates a jobs board, so all EP and EPT members would have access to that, an experts forum. GHGMI operates a peer-reviewed academic journal on GHG management, and so get you engaged with kind of the academic side of this space and some of the ongoing research to keep yourself fresh. But really the benefit is essentially formally positioning yourself as part of a professional community, like a a professional community that's now clearly recognized and certified. And that is different than just taking a training course or just kind of saying I'm an expert. To say that you've been externally validated that you have this expertise, and you've demonstrated it through work you've done over time. That is, now I'm talking primarily, about the EP GHG, and that's not a small thing. It's a significant accomplishment to become a certified professional in something as technical as this topic. And as the community grows, GHGMI and ECO will be, organizing kind of more regional groupings for people to better network. Obviously, that'll take a little bit of time as the community grows. But this will be a real professional community over time, and that means something.
Great, thank you. All right, so now we'll go to the chat. If you've asked your questions, we'll look through them and try to get to as many as we can. Some of them are quite similar to each other, so we might just read them for the sake of time, but also ask you to ask your question aloud. So the first one, a couple people are asking a little bit more about the clarification between EPT and EPGHG. So who falls into what bucket? If you can just quickly recap the difference there.
Sure. So the difference between EP and EPT is really the number of months of experience that you have as a GHG professional. EPs are required to have at least 36 months or 3 years, keeping in mind that someone who has completed a higher designation like a master's degree or a PhD can use 1 year of that experience towards that 36 months. So when you go into the applicant guide, we do have the requirement, and then we also have another way that you can reach that requirement. So the main difference is the number of months of experience that the EP applicant is required to have versus EPT. You're both required to have training. EPs also need to submit work logs, but again, that comes into work experience too.
And just to add, I mean, the way I think about it is the EPT is sort of a stepping stone to the full EP, and I'm sure, yeah, Isri's nodding. So it's mainly for those that don't have that minimum 3 years of GHG, applied experience. You might, like Isri, have a lot of other experience, but you haven't worked on GHG issues quite as much yet, or you might be right out of school. And you just haven't had time to build up that experience yet. But you still want to get some level of certification, as a stepping stone to the full EP GHG. So someone that comes right out of school would get EPT, work for 3 years, and then apply for the full EP GHG.
And if you can just say a little bit more about that process. So how does somebody move from EPT to the EPGHG?
Well, we're still working on that process as we haven't had anyone ready to do that yet. But it will be like an upgrade. I think I saw something in the chat about how there's engineering training and then they become engineers. So it's similar to that. Once you have that 36 months of experience when you're an EPT, please reach out to us and we'll get you more information on that.
Yeah, basically you'll already be in the system. We'll already have a lot of your information, so it'd be largely, the adding the missing updating the information, from the last 3 years, from your previous EPT application, submitting your work logs from the last 3 years, and then of course sitting for the exam.
Yeah.
And we have a couple questions from folks who perhaps are in Canada and they have the EP designation already, or they're in that stream. How does this differ? How does the EPGHG differ from the other EPs?
Well, certainly as an environmental professional, you might be working with some aspects of GHG management. But I think that the biggest difference is that EPs can work through 16 different specializations, which are quite specific to their work experience. And the greenhouse gas management ones, if you've looked at the applicant guides, you'll see the 8 specializations that your work will be highlighted with that specialization. So when you read those differences, you'll see the work of GHG is quite a bit different than an environmental professional who's not in GHG.
And to add, I mean, I guess one element of the EPGHG is that, it is very much global. So having members from every country in the world, eventually. GHGMI has alumni from every country in the world, pretty much with rare exception. And so in that, it's the professional community you'll be joining will be global in that sense, which is exciting, I think, and powerful. And it expands the opportunities to network and learn, and find like-minded colleagues around the world. So.
Thank you. And we have a question, and please forgive my pronunciation of your names if I make a mistake, but a question from Monica Tamang, who's asking about probably the process of moving around in specializations. So Monica, if you want to unmute and ask your question, I'm sure other people would benefit from the answer.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Ash. So my question here, just reading it from the chat, if I obtain an EP GHG designation under the GHG inventory accounting and reporting specialization, but then later moved into a different role, more aligned with the GHG data and method specialization, how should I then approach the annual maintenance requirements, particularly when submitting at least one work log per year, given that the GHG data method specialization is currently not available?
That's a very good question, because of course, people's experience is going to change as they move through their career. We want you to be able to have that flexibility with the EPGHG, and as we develop the program further and those specializations become available, we'll certainly be sending out more information. So you'll be able to go onto the ECO website or the GHGMI website for updates. If you sign up for our newsletters, that's also a good way to stay on top of what's happening with this designation. It is very new, and we're working on it so that we can capture everybody's experience through this application process. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I would just say, stepping back, I would say, I mean, largely the specializations are there to help, how would you say, appropriately concentrate or the exam process, because we all, I mean, we all of us aren't like a deep technical expertise on every aspect GHG management, right? Some of us have more experience in verification, some of us have more experience in inventory, some of us have more experience on policy things, some of us more experience, we vary, and as the question indicates, sometimes, and that changes over time. Sometimes, I was working on different things, 20 years ago than I am today, in some regards. So, so we all receive one EPGHG designation, but what kind of what the initial exam we take focuses on varies by specialization. And the expectations for what the work logs represent would also vary to some degree. So if you're kind of what you're focusing on over time, kind of shifts, your work logs, the nature of your kind of updated work logs might shift. But that's not a problem. It's just just indicate be indicating that updated information as you're renewing your certification, that now my work is now more appropriate for this specialization, that specialization. The certification committee will look at that and say, okay, well, then we should evaluate the work logs accordingly. And so the upshot is that shouldn't be an issue.
Sounds good. Makes sense. Yeah, and I also see, I think there was a similar kind of question, and I think Ash replied saying that the next specializations will be coming in the following weeks,
Correct.
Targeted end of July. So I think it should be okay. But yeah, just curious on your thoughts. But yeah, thanks, Michael. Thanks, Colleen.
Yeah, we're working through the fleshing out the all the details in terms of really it's the structuring the exams for the other specializations. But and these are this is not a static field any more than any field is static, right? I mean, there's new science, there's new policy, there's just new things going on. So all of these things are gonna be regularly updated over time. The specializations are going to be updated. Some of the specializations may change over time, as the field evolves. And that's part of what, having the certification committee there as well to kind of help the program evolve and mature over time. And the evaluation rubric, and including even the occupational standard, it will have to be updated over time as well. So no profession is static, and the same will be in our case.
Thank you so much. And we have Hendrik Liu. You've asked a few questions that I think a lot of people would benefit from the answers as well, especially around how do you apply your past training, your past education, your past work. So if you'd like to come off mute and ask your question, that would be great.
Good evening. Yes, thank you very much for the session. I really looked forward to the session because I started out right at the beginning, and then I halted everything because I realized that with my past, there's actually many hiccups with this application. But I look forward to this, and thank you very much for this. I think it is definitely a need worldwide. Yes, I have many questions, but I think to start at the beginning, just the filling out of everything, because many people has got total different experiences. And I know this, well, the exam, I think you've covered that. I think once you are approved, then only worry about the exam. So I think leave that until you get to that. That's my opinion. The first thing is really the filling out of the work log, etc. And many people will have their experience over the past couple of years, and they can put everything together. They can put the work logs together, but there are many tabs, and many people specialize in one work field, for instance, where I know at this stage is more the inventory accounting that's open and those things. The question is, if you at this stage apply for one thing, do I only put information in the inventory counting, for instance? Or do I fill in everything in all of them, number one? And then there are people like myself who sit in awkward situations because I've got, I mean, how far do I go back? I've got 26 years experience in greenhouse gas accounting, etc. Do I go back 26 years? Because some of those things are still very relevant. But how do I account for that? Because obviously, if you are in environmental management, it's stuff that knowledge that I still have, that I still use. I've done from strategy to policy to legislation. I've done ISO standards. I've done, well, the very first aluminium greenhouse gas protocol, I was part of the team. So how do I account for those things? And then if I only look at the past 5 years, once again, I've been in an awkward situation because I've done the national inventory on energy and the national inventory on industry. So I didn't do any industry inventory for companies, but I looked at 60 different inventories for companies where I helped them, for instance. So I cannot say I did the inventories, but I reviewed all those inventories. I helped them to correct them, for instance. I looked at the legislation behind it. I reviewed all the verification reports that was done. I helped the companies to train them to do the verification where they couldn't. I've helped the government to understand how they must review the verification. Now, for the past 18 months, I've done projects again, but it's only a handful of projects that I can say I did the accounting myself. So if I only account for those few projects, it looked like I've done nothing. And while I was in government, I only did 2 inventories, which was one energy inventory and one industry inventory. So the accounting, the way that it's done here, if I need to fill in this log, for instance, I will have, say, 5 logs because I had 5 appointments, but those appointments actually cover a massive amount of work. It covers most probably 60 different inventories that I was involved in, for instance, over a 5-year period. It covers at least 20 verifications I was involved in. But how do you account for those things in the way it is done here?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and anyone who's probably started to fill out the work log process is probably had a similar experience, especially if you're coming from a background, sounds like yourself with many years of experience. I face the same issue. As I started working on these topics in 1995. Obviously, I'm not going to my EP application didn't include all all my experience going back to 1995. I picked some project experience from the application period of the last few years. What I guess one would be sometimes it takes. So if you're I'll just use my own case example. There's one project that I did where I was sort of technically guiding and advising and mentoring a project team in another country. Then they were doing inventories and some mitigation analysis. I wasn't necessarily doing all of the the inventory calculations or the mitigation modeling, but I was guiding them on how to do it. I was reviewing all their work and suggesting improvements and changes, and eventually I had to actually formally approve it for submission. And so, my interpretation is, no, I wasn't actually doing the inventory calculation for this thing, but I was deeply involved in it. It's like in helping others on how they do it. The similar situation would involve for any manager, right? For some people in their career, they're doing stuff earlier in their career, and then later in your career, you're managing other people to do stuff. But I felt confident saying like this work project, did demonstrate I know how to do, inventory, whatever calculations for source categories, because again, I was managing, overseeing, guiding, and mentoring and approving someone doing that work. So that's the way I would think about it in your case as well. Like, do you feel, professionally confident saying, yes, like this work log shows I know how to do this, even though I might not have been the one doing it, in this particular case, I was actively involved in that. Now, that's different from saying I was involved in a project where this kind of work was going on. I wasn't, directly involved in it. I wasn't approving it. I wasn't managing it, but someone else was doing it. That's just sort of like experience through. It's not even experience. That's just sort of a association with someone else doing work. Um, that the work logs are meant to show what did you actually actively have a role in doing versus what would be inappropriate would be to just kind of list a whole bunch of projects that maybe you were associated with, but maybe only tangentially and didn't weren't actually doing the work you're saying that the project did, if that makes sense. Um, uh, and but there's a fair amount of, I guess, flexibility in that process, and all this is going to go to the certification committee for them to evaluate and look at. So you're presenting a case and of kind of the accumulation of your experience over the last several years. But it's not intended to be a summary document on everything you've done over your entire career, right? That's a CV.
Great. Thank you so much. We just have a few minutes left, so just wanted to say thank you all for joining us, and we plan to have more of these kind of casual Q&A sessions in the upcoming months, just as people start diving into their applications and have some of these questions where you might feel stuck, or you're not sure how to keep going or proceed. And we also plan to have them at different times so we can accommodate those of you across the globe. Thank you for joining us if you are staying up late or waking up early. We do hope to have some additional times to accommodate you as well. You'll receive an email from us after the session has ended, and we will also send you a link to the recording of this so you have all this information for you. If we didn't get to your question, apologies, but we will look through all the questions here in the chat and also send that out to everyone with our answers the best we can answer these questions for you. So, and also in our follow-up email, we will have links to resources that have been mentioned today in the call and anything in the chat that you need. So thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you, Michael, Colleen, and Isuri for joining us. We really appreciate your answers and also your perspective of going through the process. And yes, again, just stay tuned for more of these. The more people who have questions, the better. We're here to help you. And thanks again for coming.
Thanks, everyone.